Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by the Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Joe Everett. Well, currently 57 degrees outside here at the farm this morning, and yesterday we started our last field of corn, and we look to finish that up today to finish the first time before Halloween since I can remember. While speaking of Halloween, some things that have been quite scary were yesterday's market close for soybeans and wheat, both down double digits, and just how abnormally warm we've been this harvest season. Now let's check in with Dave Russell for an update from this week's Between the Rows.
Time now for this week's Between the Rows, brought to you by Seed Genetics Direct, the #1 fastest growing and largest Ohio-based seed company. Jeff Ray in Union County talks soybean harvest.
Quality-wise, they're not bad. The beans are smaller on the smaller side, I will say that. But as far as quality, not bad. They seem to be coming in pretty well. Getting a little pods in the trying to get rid of pods in the grain sample has been a little rough this year. Probably my biggest complaint is just the amount of dust that we're creating. It is just ridiculous on the combine and just in the field, and everything is ridiculous. But otherwise, the quality seems okay. I would just say smaller beans is the issue right now.
As far as the corn crop,
it seems to be standing okay. It looks a little rough. The tops are kind of falling out of it, so it looks like it's a lot shorter than it was about a month ago. It seems to be holding on to its moisture, which is really surprising considering all that stretch of hot, dry weather we had.
For Jeff Ray, when it comes to harvest progress,
I honestly feel like I've had some setbacks, so I feel like I'm behind. But I keep reminding myself it is still October, and I'm almost done with beans, so I think I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I always try to think I'm doing good if I'm done by Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving's still a ways off. So I think we're doing pretty good this year and on the early side.
Jeff Ray in Union County. And that's this week's Between the Rows, brought to you by Seed Genetics Direct. I'm Dave Russell.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Well, South America is expanding soybean production. The U.S. soybean harvest will soon finish with expected record yields. South American farmers are already working on the 2024-25 planting season. The Farm Doc Daily says Argentina may see its largest soybean acreage expansion in more than a decade. Brazil's plantings are also expected to grow at their slowest pace in 10 years. This surge in supply, driven by potential record production in both countries, could further depress international soybean prices in the months ahead. Brazil's national supply company, CONAB, says Brazil's soybean acreage could be projected to grow by 2.8%, reaching 117 million acres. This marks the slowest growth in 10 years, driven by lower profit margins for farmers. If weather conditions are favorable, the 2024 through the 2025 South American soybean crop is forecasted to reach 6.1 billion bushels, a 13% increase over the previous harvest. The Argentina soybean crop is projected to hit 1.9 billion bushels. Now let's check in for an update from Matt Reese.
On this week's Ohio AgNet podcast, we take a look at last week's National FFA Convention and the many Ohio highlights that took place. Be sure to check it out at ocj.com or wherever your podcasts are found.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Stay tuned. We'll be back to take a look at today's weather after this.
Do you know where the kids are?
Yeah, they're just right over there.
A child dies in an agriculture-related accident every 3 days. Every day, at least 33 kids are injured. 60% of them were not working when they were injured. Let's make sure the next generation is safe. No children are safe before moving equipment. This message brought to you by the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
Nearly 90% of farmers say that financial worries, constantly changing market conditions, and other uncontrollable variables take a toll on their mental well-being. Add in the weather and family dynamics, well, it's a lot to handle alone. But did you know farmers and their families can receive free confidential services from licensed professionals? Support is available 24/7 to help with the challenges you face. Look for Farm Family Wellness Alliance under the Resources tab at farmfoundation.org. Take care of yourself. Your well-being matters.
Now let's take a look at today's weather, brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Sunshine dominating here in Ohio today and tomorrow. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your forecast update. Not only are we seeing good sunshine, we're seeing well above normal temperatures here. And that's going to be the case probably through sunset on Wednesday before we see a frontal boundary try and develop on Thursday. Even with the front coming through, we don't get cold right away. We just back off of these very, very warm temperature conditions. I think the frontal boundary is going to give us anywhere from a quarter to 1 inch of precipitation across Ohio, 90% coverage. And then we move forward, and we're dealing with some sunshine to finish out the week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. High pressure sets over the Great Lakes region. That's going to be where we get our sunshine. It's cooler, but not super cold. Next week's a little bit active. We see some hit-and-miss scattered showers trying to come into the northern half of Ohio Monday morning. And then we have to allow for hit-and-miss scattered showers through the rest of Monday through Tuesday, and I think even into Wednesday. 3-day totals likely a quarter to 1 inch with coverage at 95% of Ohio. Almost everybody sees moisture the first part of next week. Behind that, then, we start to see a little bit of a cool air move. Strong Canadian high pressure moving in over the northern plains and western Corn Belt. I think it's going to try and make its way over this direction for later the 7th into Friday the 8th. And so cooler temperatures I expect to be here by the end of next week. And it's going to be temperatures that are close to where they should be this time of year. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, as farmers continue to work hard this harvest season, let's see how they're getting along. The Ohio Crop Progress Report update is sponsored by AgriSpray Drones, empowering rural America through complete spray drone solutions. You can contact them at agrispraydrones.com/Arnold Precision. Starting with the national numbers, corn harvest moved ahead 16 percentage points nationally to reach 81% complete. That is 13 points ahead of last year's 68% and 17 points ahead of the 5-year average of 52%. As for soybeans, soybean harvest continued to slow last week, moving ahead 8 percentage points to reach 89% complete. That was still 7 points ahead of last year's 82% and 11 points ahead of the 5-year average of 78%. Looking at winter wheat planting progress, winter wheat planting moved ahead another 7 points to reach 80% complete nationwide. That is 2 points behind last year's 82% and 4 points behind the 5-year average of 84%. As for the crop development, an estimated 56% of winter wheat had emerged as of Sunday, 5 points behind both last year and the 5-year average of 61%. As for its crop conditions first rating, the 2025 winter wheat crop estimated that 38% of the crop had emerged and was in good to excellent condition. Now looking at your numbers from the Buckeye State, topsoil moisture condition was rated 82% short to very short, and the average temperature for the week was 54 degrees, and that was 3.5 degrees above normal. Corn harvested for grain was rated at 72% complete this week. That jumped 21 points ahead of last week and is 46% above last year and 34 points ahead of the 5-year average. As for soybeans harvested, they're at 90% complete this week. That jumped 12 points over last week and is 15 points ahead of last year and 16 points ahead of the 5-year average. As for winter wheat planted, it is at 88% this week. That jumped 11 points over last week, 5 points ahead of last year, and 1 point ahead of the 5-year average. Then winter wheat emerged was pegged at 52% this week. That is up 16 points over last week, 2 points ahead of last year, and 7 points behind the 5-year average. As for the crop condition, winter wheat was rated at 71% good to excellent. Well, the Mississippi River at Memphis in Tennessee, St. Louis, and the Ohio River at Cairo, Illinois can't catch a good stretch of rain to help the low water levels currently creating havoc for barge traffic in the lower Mississippi River basin. On October 27th, the Mississippi River at Memphis was at negative 9.81 feet below zero gauge, negative 1.56 feet below zero gauge at St. Louis, and the Ohio River at Cairo was at 8.67 feet below zero threshold mark of 9.2 feet. The USDA, in its weekly grain transportation report on October 24th, said, over the next 2 weeks, the temperatures and precipitation predicted by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration will not suffice to stabilize the water levels. If the forecast proves accurate, then more draft and tow size restrictions will follow. While staying on the topic of lack of rainfall, there's trouble brewing in the winter wheat crop. Gary Crawford from the USDA has more.
Yes, for corn and soybean producers, the weather has been just about ideal for harvesting.
But what is of foremost concern at this point is what is happening to this winter wheat crop.
In some areas, very little is happening. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says planting progress has slowed down to a crawl. Latest numbers show only 80% of the crop having been planted. That's 4% below normal, 2% below a year ago.
That is clearly reflecting some of the delays related to producers unwilling to plant into dry conditions.
Rippey says much of the wheat that has been planted is not doing well. In short,
this is a crop that is troubled. Just 38% of the crop rated good to excellent, 23% very poor to poor.
Not the kind of numbers you want to see as that crop tries to get established. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Stay tuned. We'll be back to take a look at the grain analysis and your overnight markets after this.
AmeriHealth Caritas Ohio is your Medicaid plan for more benefits, more rewards. We know that good health means more than just seeing a doctor when you're sick. Eligible members can receive extras like home-delivered meals and family essentials, like baby carriers and kids' school supplies. Members can even earn rewards for playing mobile health trivia games. Learn more at AmeriHealthCaritasoh.com and call the Ohio Medicaid Consumer Hotline at 1-800-324-8680 to choose AmeriHealth Caritas Ohio.
Hi everyone, this is Dale Minio from the Ohio AgNet. For a quarter of a century, I powered my truck with biodiesel, traveling the state promoting agriculture. Biodiesel is a reliable, high-performance fuel that works in any diesel engine without modification. The best part is that with every mile driven, I'm fueling the economy, doing good for the environment, and supporting soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org.
It's now time for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, and that is brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished lower to start the week. For a time, it looked like we were going to try and bounce off the lows and scrape and claw our way back to just a couple pennies of loss. But you know what? The close was not necessarily all that exciting. Double-digit losses in soybeans and in wheat. The market overall looks at what's going on here in the headlines and couldn't come together with anything fantastic. Harvest progress pretty close to expectations, and that means we're, for all practical purposes, done. The soybean harvest well over 90% done. Corn harvest above 80%. And so we're definitely looking at this harvest to roll on in the next few days locally before our weather pattern changes. That last 15% or so of corn harvest might be a little touch and go with moisture hanging around, but I don't think it's going to play a big deal on the overall national futures level. Wheat futures were unable to sustain early gains before the open of day trade. World ag markets did a little yesterday as well. Probably the biggest story was the huge falling out of bed that we saw on U.S. crude oil, down over $4 at one point during the day yesterday, just due to the fact that Israel so far is staying away from Iranian oil infrastructure in attacks and talks of attacks. U.S. exporters yesterday reported 244,000 tons of corn to Japan and unknown. No soybean sales were announced. Russian FOB wheat values were down slightly, with spot wheat buyable at below $235 a metric ton. We keep mentioning that because Russia a couple weeks ago said, we're not going to sell anything under $250, and here we are. Weekly export inspections for the week ending October 24 totaled 32 million bushels on corn versus 39 the previous week, 22 million the same week a year ago. Bean inspections, 88 million bushels versus 94 the prior week, and 75 million a year ago. So again, lackluster headlines yesterday, the main draw to the market down. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Now let's take a look at your overnight markets, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Well, things are pretty quiet in the overnight trade. Let's start off with December corn, $4.11 up a quarter. March corn, $4.25 up a quarter. November soybeans, $9.77 up 3. January soybeans, $9.88.5 up 2.5. December wheat, $5.60 and a quarter up 1.5. Looking at livestock from yesterday's close, October live cattle, $190.17 up 47 cents. December live cattle, $189.27 up 12 cents. December lean hogs, $80.62 up 95 cents. February lean hogs, $84.22 up 80 cents. November feeder cattle $249.20, up 62 cents, and January feeder cattle $246.95, up $1.32. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe out there. I'm Joe Everett, and you're listening to the Ohio AgNet.